In this video, I'm going to show you how to restore an old wooden rimmed steering wheel. There's many different types of these. There's ones that have wood all the way around them. These are probably the most common. They're split two-piece. This is one of the most common wheels ever made. It's made by Superior Performance Products. It's called the 500. They made these in a variety of sizes, from 13.5 inches up to 15.5 inches. This one's a 13.5. And you can still buy a version of the steering wheel today. Grant sells it as a, their classic series. But I wanted to restore one, another one. I've already restored one. It's on the car, because I've got other wooden components in my car that are stained to match, and I didn't want to buy a new wheel and not have it match. Now, one of the cool things about restoring these is they're cheap. You can get them, like the one I got in the car, the one that's in the car now was free. This one was $40 on eBay, and they look a little worse for wear, but it's just finger goo and old stain, so you can sand it off and make it look like new, and I'll be going through that. But I'll show you what a finished product looks like. Here's one I've already done, and it was in much worse shape than that one. Problem with this guy is it's 15.5 inches in diameter. When I LS swapped this car, I added power steering, and that is, with a 15.5 inch wheel, it's like ultra mega power steering. And when the column's tilted down, the wheel in your lap, you almost have to shuffle steer because it's so close to your legs. So I'll be restoring a 13.5 inch one to replace this one. Alright, so one of the things you want to take a look at these wheels, one of the things you want to know is they're put together with, aluminum rivets here. Go through on the back side. And one of the problems with the aluminum rivets, and you can buy these if you wanted to redo them, but one of the problems with them is over the years the wood would shrink. Like this is a little loose here, and your fingers can get pinched in here. So I like to drill all these out, because you got to take it off to get to the wood anyway, and replace them with machine screws, and I'll counterbore and put some nuts in here. And that way you can tighten it if it ever needs to be tightened, or you can take it off if you need to fix something or whatever. But that's what I like to do with these. Another thing to think about or take into consideration is you're going to have these little cracks here. So when you drill these rivets out, because this thing's made up of multiple segments of wood, so when you drill these rivets out, you're going to have to glue this back together. So I'll show you how to do that. But first, got to drill the rivets out. Alright, so as you can see, we're now left with 3 pieces of steering wheel. The back actually had a crack here, and then a split, so I'm going to have to glue that. And then the front actually came apart with 3 pieces. So, one of the things you could probably notice from the video was these rivets, they're super long and hollow in the middle. Once the drill bit gets through to here, you almost have to push them through, and I just grabbed a hold of them with a pair of pliers on my mini mill there, and they came right off. But so yeah, got all those out. Now we got to glue this thing back together and wait for the glue to dry. We're going to use some Tight Bond Premium interior exterior Tight Bond 2 glue, and we'll get it glued together. Sometimes I like to use the wheel itself as a fixture while clamping this back down. Alright, so I like to put glue on all the male little pieces here that are kind of doweled. A little bit will do ya. We gotta try to get these together here without making a friggin' mess. those three pieces together. But now, kind of need to put this guy on here. Try and hold its form here. I'll clamp that down. Alright, here we are all clamped up. As you can see, put a clamp over every single joint here. Now's a good time to kind of inspect it and take a look and make sure you don't have any more cracks. Over here I did the back side as well. So where I had that big crack, I filled it full of glue, and then I've got a little clamp here holding it together. This glue's pretty good, sets in about 30 minutes. And then I found out I had another crack down here, so put glue in that, clamp that. There's where it'd come apart. And I've got these little paper towels here because otherwise you'll effectively glue your steering wheel down to your workbench, so you don't want to do that. And then I've got, just a couple of heavy things here, a couple batteries, essentially keeping it flat on the work surface, so we won't have any warping or cracking when we go to put it back on the wheel. So after the glue step is done, it's another good time to kind of take a look, and like over here, could use a little wood filler, so I'll put some wood filler there. Yeah, after the glue's dry, then we'll move on to sanding. Alright, so while our wooden steering pieces are drying, it's probably been about 45 minutes now, but that stuff needs a couple hours to get nice and firm before we start sanding on it. Polish the chrome ring now. What's really cool about these old steering wheels is they had some awesome chrome on them. So like, this one's got a little bit of, looks like just coloring or whatever, but this stuff will actually come back to life really well. The other one I did was in absolutely terrible shape, and it shines really nice. So all I'm going to use here is some really old Eagle One nano polish that I have a ton of, and a little, like Harbor Freight buffing wheel on a little drill here. You can do it by hand, you can use a drill press, you can use whatever you need to use, and then just a little old junky applicator pad to kind of get it loaded on there for when I fire this thing off. So just want to show you the tools. It's pretty simple. I'll probably do a short video, actually showing me polishing it. Right, we got some smeared on there. Here we go. Alright, so after about 20 minutes of polishing, you can see the spokes there are really nice. I mean, it looks almost brand new. And I will also polish this outer edge because you can see it really well once it gets in the car. You don't need to worry about the horn area too much because I've got a chrome horn button to go there that's in the car right now. But yeah, so you can hand polish this a little bit more if you want. The wood goes up here, so you really don't need to worry about that. You really only need the inside, the outside, and then the spokes on both sides. And yeah, turns out good. Alright, so you're got the polished center, rings are dry. Now it comes time. Next step is to counter bore for our flush screws here. As you can see, right now they stick up above the wood a little bit, so we'll be using a countersink bit, just a wood countersink bit, to go around and countersink each one of these just so those sit just below the surface a little bit. I found that I like to use stainless steel so they don't corrode. And I found the 832 by 3/4 are just about perfect to fit, not only recess down into the hole, but then also when you counterbore the backside for a nut, just the right length. And so then, yeah, I use stainless steel 832 nuts, and and then we'll end up counterboring the back side of these guys a little bit to clearance these. And yeah, so these are like $2 a piece over at Lowe's. You know, I had the wood glue, but you know, between stain, polyurethane, a little bit of polish, I mean, I bought the wheel for 40 bucks. We'll probably be into it, let's just say, if I didn't have all the stain and everything, you'd be $60 into the wheel restored. So it's about half the cost of a brand new one, and it'll look just as good. So yeah, next step is to countersink all those. Alright, so when I'm countersinking, I like the wheel to be supported, so I'll use like the edge of the bench and get one started, and then get it countersunk, then push it through, and then just put a nut on the back side, and then I'll go around and countersink each one of them, and put more and more progressive nuts on the back side. This is what I'm using. Typical countersink. I tested it on a piece of scrap just to make sure it was going to work. And yeah, and then I'll work my way around and get that done. Alright, so we've got them all counterbored, or countersunk anyway. And so this top ring is actually ready to take back off and start sanding. And now I've got to counterbore the back half to recess those nuts in. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I've done my first prototype counterbore, and just like the countersink here, what I did is I went through my drill bit stash and found one to where the nut you can just barely press fit it in there. So then I put the back side of the wheel in the mini mill here, chuck the drill bit up in there, and then set the stop so that I get a perfect counterbore on every one of these holes. Another thing I just found out, the other steering wheel I have has finger grooves in it on the back side. This one does not, so I need a slightly longer screw. So instead of the 832 by 3/4, I actually need an 832 by 7/8, which I just happen to have some of here. So just kind of be cognizant of that. You might want to buy a variety. They are so cheap, you know, you can buy a couple different sizes. But so yeah, so that's what it looks like, you know, bolted through with the counterbore done. So I'll just go ahead and do the rest of them. Now to everybody's favorite part, sanding. Got a little cheap sanding block here with like 80 grit on it, and so I like to sand supporting it so you don't put any stress in it. Sand the top here, and then when you want to get to the edges, just push it off the side and sand your edges here. And then after you got all the crud off and the nastiness, then go to like a 220 or a 320 sandpaper, and then it's time for stain. Alright, so got the back side all sanded. It's hard to believe, but underneath all that nastiness, you know, like this guy, you've got a nice piece of wood there hiding. So this guy's ready for stain, and now on to the other one. Alright, kind of hard to believe, but here they are, ready for staining and polyurethaning. So I'm going to use this Rust-Oleum dark walnut wood stain and some fast drying Minwax polyurethane, a couple coats of each, and yeah, I'll show you guys what it looks like when it comes out. So here we are after 1 coat of stain and 3 coats of polyurethane, ready for reassembly. I'm going to let it dry a little bit longer before I take that on, but just to give you an idea of the size difference. So this is a 13.5 I talked about. Here's the 15 off the car, and as you can see, there's a significant difference in size. Well, here she is completed. I'll put back together, get ready to put her on the car. Kind of see the fruits of the labor. I took and sanded the tips of the screws around so wouldn't have anything in, you know, wouldn't feel weird on the fingers, but there she is. So here it is, finished and installed in the car. Much better. I used to have to tilt the wheel to get out of the car before because it hit my legs, and now it's perfect spot. So there it is. Nice one-day project.